Hi, you're watching AWANI Tonight with me, Saraya Mia. Pakatan Harapan demands independent probe into Azam Baki's controversial shares ownership. And youth vote in upcoming general election is anyone's game, says think tank. That's coming up. Police will begin investigation after receiving reports made against MACC Chief Tan Sri Azam Baki, according to a report quoting Home Minister Datuk Sri Hamzah Zainuddin. Azam is embroiled in a controversy surrounding shares purchased allegedly by his brother in 2015 and 2016.
Several reports were lodged against Azam by PKR lawmakers at the Dangwangi District Police Headquarters, including from PKR Youth Chief Akmal Nasrullah Nasir, Lembah Pantai MP Fahmi Fadzil, Petaling Jaya MP Maria Chin Abdullah and Simpang Renggam MP Mazli Malik. They are calling for further investigation into the case and demand that Azam to be temporarily relieved of his post until the investigation is completed.
The Pakatan Harapan leadership demanded an independent probe to investigate possible elements of corruption in Azam Baki's controversial shares ownership. The party's presidential council said the explanation given by Azam was unacceptable as it raised issues of conflict of interest and breach of law. They also called upon the Prime Minister Datuk Sri Ismail Sabri Yaakob to conduct a special parliament sitting to address the matter. PH also urged for a similar probe to be conducted on the Anti-Corruption Advisory Board LPPR chairman Tan Sri Abu Zahar Ujang, who accepted Azam's explanation without revealing facts from their investigations. The Securities Commission said yesterday that it will be in touch with Azam and parties involved, seeking an explanation over his alleged acquisition of millions of shares in two public listed companies in 2015. Azam said the shares bought via his account was done by his brother Nasir. Meanwhile, the Center to Combat Corruption and Cronyism C4 says Azam Baki should retract his letter of demand against anti-graft activist Lalita Kunaratnam over articles published regarding the share issue. MACC, it said, is an agency that is tasked to protect those who expose corruption, and Azam should not threaten anyone with legal action. Azam has initiated legal proceedings against Kunaratnam for defamation, saying it was done to protect his good standing and reputation. Meanwhile, MCA spokesperson Chan Quin also called Azam to retract his letter of demand against Kunaratnam. As a high-ranking senior civil servant, doing so, she said, would show that he has nothing to hide. Lalita, she added, was only doing her job by reporting on public knowledge, as all public listed companies publish and submit their annual report. In other news, prices for fresh chicken and chicken eggs may go up after the Malaysian Family Maximum Price Control Scheme ends on February 4th. Domestic Trade and Consumer Affairs Minister Datuk Sri Alexander Nantalinggi said the potential price increase is linked to higher operational costs and imported animal feed. His ministry, he said, is working with the Agriculture and Food Industry Ministry to stabilize the prices of essential food items. Nanta said the retail chicken price was set at 9 ringgit and 10 cents per kilogram until February 4th under the price control scheme, but farmers have complained of rising operating costs. He appealed to consumers to understand the issues faced by poultry farmers, as it is not easy to keep prices low for them to provide the supplies. Malaysia and Singapore will re-evaluate current risks before deciding whether to proceed with the 50% quota of the vaccinated travel lane VTL land and air scheme. Transport Minister Datuk Sri Wee Ka Siong said the risk assessment will be done in the next few weeks.
The two countries had previously agreed to continue the daily VTL from January 21st, with total ticket sales reduced to 50% of the allocated quota. However, on December 23rd, Malaysia and Singapore decided to temporarily suspend the sale of bus and flight tickets under the VTL to curb the spread of the Omicron variant. Previously, the daily quota for the land VTL scheme was set at 1,440 passengers for each way. Earlier, we said the decision on whether to continue postponement or resume the VTL air scheme will be determined within 48 hours before January 21st.
Youths 18 and over anticipate voting for the first time as Undi 18 and automatic voter registration is set to kick off in the next general elections. Institute for Democracy and Economic Affairs Tricia Yeo says this would contribute to a significant shift in the political landscape.
The Undi 18 as well as the automatic voter registration, that will have a tremendous impact, and I don't think that any of the polling results or any kind of research and survey has actually been significant enough for us to be able to predict the direction in which the youth vote is going to take place. In fact, I don't think there's been enough political education that's been rolled out to the youth who are going to be voting for the first time. And if anything, it will probably add to an already complex and very layered political situation.
In hindsight, Tricia urged more be done to educate the new generation on politics to ensure right practice of constitutional rights.
Depends what sources of information the youth are actually taking to consume and digest information anyway, right? Because it may not necessarily be traditional TV, traditional newspapers, but it could be on their smartphones, TikTok videos, and so on. So producers of content need to be innovative as well and produce interactive, attractive content that will educate the youth about what politics is. So there should be no fear about educating the youth, because ultimately, if you're giving them the power to decide for themselves which governments they want, then we really need to take responsibility and take the risk, be willing to take the risk of sharing information about political history, for example, what happened in 1997, even before that, 1987, what happened during Operasi Lalang. I mean, these are very key incidents that took place in our national history that we need to be willing to debate, discuss in a rational manner, have political discourse, and show to the youth that it is possible to do that without having any violence take place. So as long as we can have this discursive manner, understanding politics, understanding philosophy, understanding economics, what is the political economy, for example, these are really crucial, fundamental pieces of knowledge that they need to know in order to understand how significant their vote will be.
Tonight on Consider This, we speak to the eminent Islamic scholar, Tan Sri Prof. Muhammad Kamal Hassan, about his recent book, Corruption and Hypocrisy in Malay Muslim Politics, about the country's moral trajectory and what might reverse its tragic decline. We'll go for a quick break. Stay tuned. Welcome back. After 2 days in detention in Melbourne, tennis star Novak Djokovic and his legal team continue to battle for his release to play the Australian Open. The Serbian athlete is seeking for an exemption from Australia's COVID-19 vaccination rules. Supporters of Djokovic gathered outside the hotel where he was being detained to voice their support. Fans allege that he was being held captive, but the Australian government hit back, saying that Djokovic can leave any time. Australia also said it will investigate visas of other foreign tennis players. Djokovic was given medical exemption by Victoria State to play in the Australian Open. But on Wednesday, he was denied entry after immigration officials said the 34-year-old failed to provide appropriate evidence at Melbourne Airport. Djokovic's court challenge will be heard on Monday, a week before the tournament begins. In other news, after days of unprecedented unrest, the president of Kazakhstan claimed that order had mostly been restored in the country. More protesters are reportedly killed as security forces were given orders to open fire without warning if there were further disturbances.
Fresh violence erupted in the main city of Almaty as Russia sent in its military to put down the uprising. Kazakhstan is one of Moscow's closest former Soviet allies. clashes had initially erupted over surging fuel prices that resulted in a 2-week state of emergency being declared. Kazakhstan is experiencing the worst protests since the country gained independence 3 decades ago. The unrest have turned violent, with government buildings set ablaze and dozens of civilians and law enforcement officers killed.
Cambodian Prime Minister Hun Sen arrived in Myanmar today, welcomed by an honor guard and red carpet. His visit, a first by head of government to military-ruled Myanmar, sparked anti-coup protests, as the trip is seen as Cambodia legitimizing the junta.
His 2-day visit was the first by a head of government to Myanmar since the army overthrew the elected administration of Aung San Suu Kyi on February 1st last year. Cambodia is currently the chair of ASEAN. The regional bloc had adopted a 5-point consensus plan in efforts to resolve the crisis in Myanmar. However, the junta did not implement the consensus. As a result, its military leader was banned from attending the ASEAN Leaders Summit in October.
The US and Japan expressed concerns about what they describe as China's ongoing efforts to undermine rules-based order. The two countries agreed to deepen cooperation by signing a new defense deal to counter emerging threats.
U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken, in a virtual meeting, said the collaboration includes a new 5-year agreement to share cost of the American military presence in Japan.
China and Russia continue to violate international norms on land, at sea, in space, in cyberspace. Beijing's provocative actions keep raising tensions across the Taiwan Strait and in the East-South China Seas.
Both countries also opposed any unilateral actions threatening Japan's administration of the Senkaku Islands, controlled by Japan but claimed by China.
That is all we have for you on AWANI Tonight. For all the latest news, head on to astroawani.com or download the Astro AWANI app. I'm Saraya Mia. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you again soon.